couldn't believe it. He had drugged me.
You're working with the most intelligent person on the planet. He's very discerning, always lifting everybody around him up.
Cosby was on top of me, kissing me forcefully. I remember thinking, why is he doing this to me? Even while wearing his wife's bracelet.
Phylicia Rashad just set the internet on fire at 77. The same woman who once played the perfect mom on The Cosby Show has finally broken her silence. And what she revealed left jaws on the floor. After almost 4 decades of whispers and shadows, she's tearing down the polished image and exposing the story that fame, fear, and power kept locked away. Rashad didn't tiptoe around it. She straight up exposed the dark world hiding behind those smiling sitcom faces. She spoke about manipulation, control, and a chilling culture of silence that wasn't loyalty at all. It was pure fear. And for the very first time, someone from the inside confirmed what people had long suspected but were too scared to say. The empire around Bill Cosby wasn't as bulletproof as it seemed. At a private arts event in Houston, with women crying as they shared their stories of being drugged and assaulted by Cosby, Rashad dropped her own truth. She admitted that between 1985 and 1989, on at least 3 separate occasions, she personally saw Cosby sneaking off with women who had no connection to the show.
It's tragic however you look at it, whether he's found guilty, innocent, that you're even going through it.
And every single time, the set stayed dead silent. Nobody dared to question him or step in. Rashad confessed that she too stayed quiet, convincing herself it was personal business, even though deep down she knew calling him out was risky. At the height of the show's fame, Cosby wasn't just an actor, he was untouchable. He controlled scripts, ruled over the cast, and even had influence with the network itself. Crossing him meant risking careers, so silence became the rule, until now. She revealed that whenever she or anyone else tried to hint at concern, they were instantly shut down and labeled unprofessional. The message was clear: just do your job. And for 8 long years, that's exactly what she did. Backstage whispers were constant, but at the time, those rumors were brushed off as meaningless gossip and quickly buried. But when the Cosby allegations finally blew up years later, Rashad admitted her mind began replaying every moment she ignored. Suddenly, the things she once brushed off didn't look so harmless anymore. She confessed that what she saw wasn't normal, and even though she stopped short of calling it criminal, she admitted the guilt of staying silent. That silence, she now believes, made her part of the problem. Her confession isn't just about the disturbing acts, it's about the decades she stayed silent.
It's about the obliteration of legacy.
Waking up in a bed with Mr. Cosby naked beneath his open robe.
Rashad admitted that keeping quiet was her biggest mistake, explaining that back then, women in Hollywood had almost no power to question men at the top without risking everything. And Cosby? He wasn't just a co-star. He was the kingpin, admired everywhere, untouchable in the industry. We put so much trust in one person, Rashad admitted, and now I feel like I'm paying the price for that trust. Those words still sting with the weight of betrayal. But just when it seemed like she had laid everything bare, Rashad threw in another shocking twist. At a recent arts education conference, she argued that The Cosby Show still holds cultural value, but its silence and the ugly truths it hid poisoned that legacy forever. She made it clear, speaking out now isn't about destroying the show's memory, but about honoring those who lived in silence for too long. This, she said, is about shining light, not tearing down, and about finally letting people understand what really went on behind closed doors. The reason she stayed quiet so long, she doubted herself. Rashad admitted she didn't believe her instincts or suspicions were enough to take on an empire that looked perfect from the outside. But when dozens of women stepped forward with nearly identical stories, she realized she wasn't imagining it. She had been part of a much darker reality. And for the first time, Rashad addressed her past defense of Cosby head-on. She claimed the media twisted her words, declaring, "That was a misquote, and that is not what I said." With force, she cut herself free from the defense she had been tied to for years. She explained that decades of work in theater and education taught her how heavy the responsibility of truth really is. She admitted that the past can't be undone, but by owning up now, she hopes future generations will see the industry with clearer eyes. "I lived in the dark for too long," she confessed. "Now I want to be clear." Her words hit like a confession drenched in regret. Her statement doesn't bring lawsuits, and she's not pointing fingers at other cast members, but the shock is still huge. This is the very first time a core star from the show has publicly admitted that red flags were there all along, and while her words don't undo court rulings, they do rip open a brand new chapter in the show's history, one where silence can't survive and the truth can't be buried anymore.
The reality was I hadn't spoken to Mr. Cosby, and I felt that it would be kind of tactless.
The Cosby dream wasn't just about Bill Cosby. It was a whole machine that catapulted Phylicia Rashad into living room royalty. Before the sitcom, she was respected on Broadway, already polished in theater. But stepping into Claire Huxtable's shoes turned her into America's favorite mom overnight. Suddenly, she was the face of elegance, intelligence, and power in primetime homes everywhere. Rashad herself admitted that walking onto the Cosby Show set felt like stepping into another world. "I knew I was onto something big, but I didn't know it would become a cultural icon," she told one magazine, and she was right. The show ruled the ratings for years, becoming one of the most watched sitcoms of its time. Families gathered every week to see Cliff and Claire Huxtable, the couple that redefined how Black families were shown on television. Her character was groundbreaking. Claire Huxtable was a powerhouse lawyer, a sharp but loving mother, and a confident Black woman in a role TV almost never allowed. Critics praised her balance with Cosby's Cliff, calling their chemistry natural, real, and refreshing. Rolling Stone even crowned them the first married couple on TV that actually felt like a real family, not just two actors reading lines. And what was the secret behind that magic? Rashad always said it wasn't just the script, it was the chemistry. She revealed that the connection came from mutual respect between her and Cosby. On set, he wasn't just the lead, he was positioned as a mentor, guiding, giving feedback, tweaking moments to feel authentic. Even experienced actors often found themselves taking his direction.
That was a misquote, and that is not what I said.
That bond created television history, but now, with everything that's come out, those so-called mentorship moments suddenly carry a chilling new meaning. Rashad admitted that at first she thought Cosby's endless rewrites and line changes were over the top, but soon she realized the bigger picture. He wasn't just tweaking performances, he was controlling the entire emotional rhythm of the audience. Every laugh, every pause, every tear-jerking moment flowed through him, and that kind of grip made the show powerful. But it also erased space for anyone else's voice, and not everyone could handle that. Some of the younger cast members quietly admitted they felt nervous performing in front of Cosby because of how strict and demanding he was. Rashad said that at the time, it looked like pure professionalism to her, but looking back now, she admits that environment was far from healthy. The pressure was relentless, and Cosby's dominance over the set created an atmosphere where nobody dared to push back. Still, The Cosby Show broke television wide open. For the very first time, America saw a middle-class Black family in prime time, not as stereotypes, not as comic sidekicks, but as fully human, educated, and successful. The Huxtables weren't just characters. They became a symbol that shifted how millions of people viewed Black families in America. Critics called it a historic turning point, while audiences embraced it like a cultural revolution. Rashad often spoke about how rare those roles were back then. Before that, she said, "We didn't have roles as lawyers or doctors. We were usually just comic relief or background characters." But as Claire Huxtable, she shattered that mold, and Hollywood noticed. Her performance brought awards, nominations, and cemented her as one of the most respected Black actresses of her era. Her success carried her far beyond the sitcom stage. She was invited to judge at award shows, mentor upcoming actors, and teach at top arts programs across the country. Claire Huxtable wasn't just a TV mom anymore. She had turned into a cultural icon. But that icon status came with chains. Rashad revealed that the praise, the awards, even the honorary degrees from big-name universities came with suffocating expectations. "When you become a role model, people don't allow you to make mistakes," she admitted. "They don't want you to speak up. They don't want you to have doubts. They just want you to maintain the image they've grown accustomed to." The pressure to stay perfect wasn't a blessing, it became a cage. This was the peak of her fame, the height of her career, but behind the standing ovations, Rashad was waking up to a darker truth. Success, she realized, can cast shadows deep enough to hide dangerous realities. What she ignored for years, what she forced herself not to see, eventually turned into a weight she couldn't shake. Her entire career was forever tied to Bill Cosby, and when the accusations erupted and shattered the show's shiny image, she had to face the hardest question of all. Had she trusted the wrong man from the very beginning? That's when the doubts hit her like a storm. She began questioning her own silence, asking why staying quiet had ended up costing so much. The guilt slammed right into the lessons she'd carried since childhood. Phylicia Rashad grew up in Houston, Texas, in a proud African-American household built on discipline and dignity. Her mother, a poet and artist, was the quiet observer, rarely showing emotions openly. Her father, a respected dentist in the community, carried authority everywhere he went. But at home, he was strict, reserved, and unbending. The rules were set in stone. Order must be kept, dignity must never slip, emotions must always stay under control. When something bad happened, you didn't speak it out loud, Rashad remembered. When you were sad, you didn't cry in front of others. That strict upbringing shaped her silence. And when Cosby's world finally fell apart, those old lessons came back to haunt her. From the start, Phylicia was molded to stay calm, composed, and polished, no matter what. Her parents drilled it into her, but it wasn't just them. It was the culture she was raised in. In many Black families, young women were expected to be flawless, strong, and put together, carrying the weight of how the world would judge them. Every move mattered. Every slip could be used against them. And Rashad knew this since she was a child. That pressure followed her everywhere. At school, she wasn't just good. She had to be exceptional. She became the model student, the one teachers pointed to as an example. She trained in dance, mastered singing, perfected her acting, all while never stepping out of line. On stage, she dazzled with grace, but always kept her emotions tight. At home, she was the dutiful daughter. At school, the perfect student, and everywhere else. The young woman who never dared to crack under the pressure. When she enrolled at Howard University, one of the most prestigious Black colleges in the nation, the expectations only got heavier. At Howard, it wasn't just about chasing a degree. Students were constantly reminded they were representing their entire community. Every victory, every stumble, every mistake wasn't just personal. It reflected on all of them. And Phylicia knew she had to carry that weight every single day. That atmosphere sharpened her edge. She became more disciplined, more focused, more determined to rise as a leader. She understood early on that life for Black artists in America, especially in media, was boxed in. Opportunities were limited, stereotypes ran wild, and respect had to be earned twice over. If she wanted to stand out, she couldn't afford slip-ups. She had to be sharper, smarter, and more polished than everyone else around her. Weakness not allowed, controversy off limits. Every step had to be precise, every word carefully measured. That kind of training carved her into someone resilient, but also deeply guarded. She learned to hide her real thoughts, to stay silent when silence was safer, and to endure pressure with a straight face, even when the truth was burning inside her. Phylicia Rashad grew up in a world where survival meant endurance. Confrontation wasn't encouraged. Silence and composure were the shields she carried, and those habits shaped every decision she made later in life. Even when her career or her personal life faced earthquakes, she leaned on the same armor. Speak carefully, hold your ground, and don't get pulled into public battles. It wasn't that she didn't care. It was that she was trained to believe silence was protection. Protection for her family, for her reputation, for the values she thought she was defending. Her calm, measured personality wasn't an accident. It was the product of years of lessons teaching her that your image wasn't just your own. It carried the weight of your family, your community, and even your entire generation. For Phylicia, keeping dignity intact was just as important as telling the truth. But after decades tied to Claire Huxtable and the shadow of Cosby's scandal, Rashad finally switched lanes. She reinvented herself, leaving behind the sitcom identity and diving into education and theater directing. This wasn't just a new career move. It was a bold step to break free from the storm of the past and rebuild a legacy on her own terms. She returned to Howard University, the place that once molded her, but this time as a leader. Rashad threw herself into mentoring young artists, teaching drama, and giving the kind of guidance she once wished someone had given her. Before long, she was named head of the university's art department, a role she treated as more than just a title. To her, it was a mission, to raise up a generation that wouldn't stay silent, a generation unafraid to ask the hard questions she once swallowed. In an interview with The New Yorker, Phylicia Rashad admitted, "I can't change what happened, but I can help change the way young people approach art and truth." That became her new mantra, no longer chasing TV fame, but building her own stage, where she held the pen, the vision, and the authority that once belonged to others. One of her boldest moves was directing Purpose, a play that earned serious recognition in New York. The story revolved around a family ripped apart by a long-buried secret, a storyline that felt chillingly close to her own past. And when people asked if the material was personal, Rashad didn't dodge. "I chose to work with the material that I knew best," she admitted. Critics instantly picked up on the subtext. The Los Angeles Times declared, "Purpose is not just a play, it's a statement from someone once bound by silence." With projects like this, Rashad began shifting from silent witness to bold storyteller, finally voicing the truth she once kept buried. Not long after, she directed Immediate Family, another raw project dissecting the collision between private reality and public image. And though she never directly tied it to her past, her message was clear. This wasn't art for entertainment's sake. "I felt like I was doing something necessary," she confessed. "Not for others, but for myself." Off stage, she dedicated herself to teaching, leading acting workshops where she peeled back the curtain on the darker side of show business. At one Texas art school, she didn't sugarcoat a thing. Don't let fame cloud your intuition. If you feel something is not right, trust that feeling. That warning carried the sharp edge of experience, decades of watching what silence can destroy. Phylicia Rashad's shift into education and theater wasn't some PR move to clean up her image. It was survival. It was healing. It was her way of reclaiming her voice. As Esquire magazine bluntly put it, Rashad isn't running from Cosby's shadow. She's staring it down and answering with meaningful work. She doesn't deny the Cosby Show shaped her career, but she refuses to let that single role chain her legacy forever. "I was a part of something important, but I can't let one role define me," she declared. And she's proving it every day. Rashad continues directing theater, mentoring students, and working with institutions. But her choices aren't random. Almost every project she takes on circles back to one core theme, facing truth no matter how painful it is. That message has become her calling card, woven into everything she does. At a recent conference, she admitted, "I've been living in a perfect character for so long. Now I want to live true to what I know." That confession stripped away the polished mask of Claire Huxtable once and for all. In a time where art demands honesty and courage, Rashad is reshaping her worth, not through reruns or nostalgia, but through bold action. Today, her rhythm is steady, teaching, directing theater, and serving her community, much of it in her hometown of Houston. She may no longer dominate TV screens, but she holds power in classrooms, rehearsal halls, and local stages. What she once avoided, truth, confrontation, transparency, has now become the very core of who she is. And when asked again about her most famous role, Rashad didn't hesitate. "I know people still remember Claire Huxtable. I appreciate that, but I also want them to know that I am a real person, not a character." Even as TV offers come in, asking her to revisit the old show, she makes it clear she isn't living in the past. She's building something new, something real. Phylicia Rashad has drawn her line in the sand. She won't spend her life polishing an old image. Instead, she's rooted her legacy in values she calls non-negotiable: honesty, discipline, and the courage to face mistakes. Time magazine captured it perfectly. Rashad isn't clinging to the halo of yesterday. She's carving out space where past, present, and accountability collide. But this path hasn't been simple. For someone once seen as untouchable on television, letting go of that perfection meant peeling off layers of image the world still wants to hold on to. Rashad admits that looking back doesn't bring anger, it brings clarity. "I've seen a time when fame can obscure a lot of things. Now I want to be more transparent," she confessed, cutting straight through the myth of TV perfection with unshakable honesty. Her actions prove it too. In recent years, Rashad has stepped further away from the spotlight, even resigning from her leadership role at Howard University. But she doesn't see that as a loss. It's a move towards something more authentic. She wants her legacy built on accountability, not illusion. At a theater conference, Rashad delivered her hardest truth yet. There are times in life when you're forced to choose between loyalty and truth. Neither path feels completely right, she admitted. But the choice still has to be made. Her words landed like both a warning and a lesson, reminding everyone that silence, loyalty, and truth rarely travel the same road. Her public support for Bill Cosby once sparked heavy backlash, but today she addresses it differently. Not as a question of simple right or wrong, but as part of her story, one she has fully processed and accepted. Phylicia doesn't deny anything, a close friend told New York Magazine. She doesn't try to explain it away. She lives the whole story, even the ugly parts. That raw honesty is what sets her apart now. She may not walk Hollywood red carpets anymore, but Rashad is far from fading. These days, she's pouring her energy into theater, directing productions across the country, from major art hubs to intimate community stages. She's built a powerful second act away from TV fame, choosing substance over spectacle and creating work layered with truth and depth. Her journey proves one thing: whether you live in the spotlight or behind the curtain, truth will always come knocking. And while her decision to finally speak came late, it was still an act of courage. Enough to make people everywhere question the myths they thought would never break. Phylicia Rashad's story shows that silence doesn't last forever. And the moment you choose truth, even after years of holding it back, you can rewrite everything. If this story hits you hard, make sure to smash that like button, share it so others can hear these truths, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive we've got coming. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're watching, we're listening, and we want to hear your take. Thanks for sticking with us until the very end. And we'll see you in the next video.